self-defense. Remembering that story that he was telling, that they wouldn't necessarily get all riled up unless they thought their children were in danger, and then they were screaming and the veins were popping in their necks.
Yeah.
I think that thing about women and aggression as well, that we've been conditioned not to fight back or not to fight at all, and yet scratch the surface, go out in Liverpool on a Saturday night, or Birkenhead, or any city probably, and you'll see something quite contrary to that.
There are statistics that support this. If you look, I'll try and find. If you look at the prison and violence, there's a far higher rate of attrition and reported violent incidents in female prisons than male prisons. Women are actually naturally more aggressive than men. And another thing that I can't provide a source for, but I'll try to, is a study that was done on monkeys that showed that, I always like this, I think this is quite cool, the sexual behaviour of female monkeys wasn't determined by male perception of the female monkey. The males didn't discipline female monkeys for sleeping with different monkeys or whatever. The females did, and they were savage, absolutely savage in it. So now we see like an echo of this, I think, where women go out and they are looking around the room, and the guy next to them is looking around the room, and they're both looking at the women in the room, and they're looking at the women in the room to check their status. Women's magazines are full of pictures of women. There are more pictures of women in a woman's magazine than in a man's magazine.
Yeah.
I think we still see that genetic echo of women checking their status with the women, and I think the savagery that I've experienced and observed is that there is a not that women are, maybe not women are more aggressive than men, but are equally as aggressive as men.
I think they're more psychologically aggressive, that's for sure.
No doubt. But my counter, not a counter theory, but a question I've always had about that is, is it possible that through the cultural conditioning that's been placed on women for the last 3, 4, 5,000 years, where they are culturally conditioned to become more passive, if you're going to have a passive aggressive strategy, then it's naturally going to be emotional and psychological. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah.
So is it nature or nurture? I mean, certainly, observably nowadays, a woman will always wipe the floor with a man when it comes to psychological warfare.
Definitely.
Without question. Did you just look at your husband then?
No.
Did you just give him an evil look like, yes? But yeah, I mean, I saw the first exposure I had to that was in the schools, when I went back into the schools, and some of the stuff that the 15, 16-year-old girls were doing to each other in terms of bullying was just awful. Really cool. Really, really cool.
Yeah, I met up with someone I used to go to school with recently, and she told me a few stories about our old school, which at the time was meant to be a good school that we were at, but brutal, absolutely brutal in terms of the social life amongst the pupils. A girl recently got scalped in the toilets in my old school.
Scalped? What is this? What? It's madness, isn't it?
Scalped.
Her
hair completely scalped off.
Wow.
So they must have been jealous about her hair.
It's awful. It's stories like that can make you depressed, can't it? There was one I got sent recently about. It was in America, a black community. This young girl, she's a really good singer. She goes on America's Got Talent or whatever the equivalent of American X Factor. The night before she's due to go on, 5 girls get a hold of her and beat her unconscious, with a brick. Just to stop her from going on this talent show. Wow. It's scary. It's scary.
I mean, I told you about my incident in Liverpool when I got headbutted by a girl.
Yeah.
That completely shocked me. I'd broken up loads of fights between guys, and not a thing had ever happened to me in the past. And 2 guys are fighting, if I was sober, or not necessarily even when I was sober, I would sometimes get in the middle and go, come on, stop it. And they'd stop it. But with this incident, as I told you, it was a girl, and that was the thing that I really could not get my head around, because obviously my conditioning of being girls don't do that, I just didn't think she would do anything like that.
It certainly can be shocking. Certainly, I mean, the first time I ever had it, I was 18, and it was one of my sister's friends, and this girl was a karate champion, very pretty girl, and this group of scallies, she was outside the house after a house party waiting for a taxi, and this group of scally girls came up and just started punching her, and I came outside and this girl, her face was covered in blood because they punched with sovereigns on it.
Oh,
so my first response was to go nuts. Fortunately, I didn't punch any of them. I pushed them, so it didn't elevate beyond the situation that was there. But it was really shocking. I did just a display of aggression, purely out of resentment, purely out of jealousy, just pure hatred. But these girls who are walking around at 11:30 at night, who are 15 years old, who are wearing tracksuits but aren't going to play tennis, they're not coming from a very happy environment. It doesn't excuse the behaviour, but like you were saying, with Zimbardo's Lucifer effect, we are the products of our environment. But yeah, no, they're certainly. I think you were the first to raise the point. The level of aggression that is displayed between women is ferocious.
Yeah, I think that's something definitely worth thinking more about, especially as women are apparently twice as more likely to suffer from depression than men are.
Is that right? Twice as likely?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. And that
I'll get the statistic for you.
That would kind of support the theory of repressed aggression as well, wouldn't it?
Mm.
And see, we talked about repressed aggression, but I actually think it's probably going to be repressed emotion of any kind. If you're sad and you repress it, you're probably going to be repressed. If you're happy and you repress it, you're probably going to be
an old teacher of mine said grief, I think I said this in one of my emails, grief repressed creates aggression as well.
Really? Really? See, now, neither of us are fans of Freud, but at this point Freud would be stroking his beard and going, "You see what I told you?" Because it's all about repression and suppression of drives, isn't it? I think he was the first person to come up with the idea that what you repress over here, yeah, you can press that over there, it's just going to pop up somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, it was simplistic, probably oversimplistic, but I think there's merit to that argument. So grief suppressed will manifest as anger.
Yeah, and violence.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. That kind of makes me wonder, well, does that mean in psychological terms is aggression and sadness they are opposite? And if you repress your aggression, you get depressed. You repress your sadness and you get angry. Maybe they're the opposite ends of some kind of an emotional spectrum.
Yeah, maybe. Because his theory was that when you attack someone, you're giving them grief. The phrase "giving someone grief," you're actually giving them your grief.
Oh, that's interesting.
So you're passing it on to them. So, for example, the women, you just talked about women, checking out the women around the room next to their man. Well, maybe they're looking at those women and going, "Oh my God, she's just so much better looking than me. She's got bigger boobs. She's got this, that, and the other. My man's checking her out." And instead of feeling the pain of that, it immediately transforms into rage, and I'm going to destroy her.
Yeah. I think that that has a lot of merit to it, and I would say that what worsens it is that we do live in a society where looks are all important. Our culture is very competitive. Everybody who is not you, who is not part of your tribe or clan, is the enemy. Looks are hugely important, and I think we're going to see a lot more. We'll continue to see problems related to and social violence between women based on things like you're better looking than me, or I've experienced it myself where I was talking to a girl who my girlfriend at the time thought was cleverer than her, so she started to attack her verbally because she was cleverer, and we were meeting on a different level that she can understand, so she got angry about that. It's all status and threat, really, isn't it?
And insecurity.
Yes.
Trying to find your place within hierarchy.
Yes.
So if you think you're in a certain position, then someone comes into the room who makes your position more unstable, then that's gonna create some kind of emotion, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean that's not limited to women. I've experienced that with men.